Before we start, at Fantasy Sabers, we're launching the Chosen One affordable version. This is almost an identical replica of the Chosen One saber with just a few tweaks, but it's still packing all of its power and glory. And to celebrate, for the first 2 weeks of its launch, we're giving away one for free with every saber order. Just choose your saber, add it to the cart to claim your free saber. Don't miss out on this limited time only sale. Now back to the video.
During the Clone Wars, the Jedi were unbelievably close to discovering Order 66, when Clone Trooper 5s found the plot and was seconds away from telling Anakin Skywalker. But when Commander Fox arrived and shot and killed 5s, the information was lost forever. So what if 5s was able to tell Anakin everything before he died? As the Coruscant Guard makes their way to 5s' position on the lower levels of Coruscant, they get confused by which warehouse to enter. 5s didn't have much time before the clones arrived and arrested him. He told Anakin and Rex everything, the chips in their head, Order 66, the plan to destroy the Jedi, and how Palpatine was behind it all. Anakin's face shifted from confusion to horror, while Rex looked like the ground had been pulled out from under him. Rex asked how this could be true, and Anakin questioned how certain he was. Before they could ask more, the Coruscant Guard stormed in, weapons raised. 5s reached for his weapon out of fear, but the guards opened fire, and Anakin watched helplessly as his friend fell. Anakin and Rex would take this to the council chambers immediately. He told them everything that 5s just said. The council sat in silence, each member looking at another to see who would speak first. Some looked skeptical, others concerned, but Obi-Wan broke the silence, saying they needed proof. But Windu said that it would raise suspicions for what the council were authorizing. Plo Koon refuted this, saying that if what the clone trooper said was true, they had to act now. After a tense debate, the council looked to Yoda, who had remained silent. Whatever Yoda said happened. He was the final straw. The Grandmaster says they need to get the story verified, and so the council will send Anakin, Obi-Wan, Rex, and Cody to Kamino to verify 5's claims. As Anakin left the chamber, his mind raced. If what 5 said was true, everything they knew about the war, about Palpatine, was about to change. They get in their starfighters and leave for Kamino immediately. A few hours later, Palpatine would summon Anakin, wanting to speak with him, but he couldn't find the boy anywhere. He contacts the Jedi Council and asks if they could alert Anakin to his presence. But to the Chancellor's surprise, Anakin was unavailable. Asking for more information, the Jedi told him that Anakin was away on Jedi business, and the rest is classified. Their vague answers and refusal to reveal where he was had set off alarms in his mind. Something was deeply wrong. He summoned Dooku immediately, instructing his apprentice to reach out to the Kaminoans to ensure the situation was still under control. Dooku obeyed, contacting the Prime Minister directly, and the response confirmed Palpatine's growing fears. The Jedi were on Kamino, investigating the inhibited chips. The Prime Minister of Kamino explained they were asking probing questions about the clones and the chip's purpose, clearly suspicious. Palpatine's worst nightmare was now a reality. The secret of Order 66 was compromised. 5s. It all traced back to that clone. Somehow, despite their best effort to silence him, 5s had leaked critical information to the Jedi before his death. Palpatine's calm mask remained, but inside he was seething. This was a disaster. The Jedi were far too close to discovering the truth of his plans. If they connected the dots, it would not only jeopardize Order 66, but everything that he had built. The war, the rise of the Empire, his entire path to ultimate power. Dooku returned with the news, and the two Sith quickly began to strategize their response. Palpatine knew they couldn't afford to be rash. If the Jedi sensed they were being watched, it could push them to act even faster. Dooku asks his master what he wishes of him, and the Sith Lord tells his apprentice to prepare the droid army. A full-scale invasion on Kamino is required. Across the galaxy, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Rex, and Cody march through the white halls of Tipoca City. The rain battered against the windows as they moved through the cloning facility, trying not to draw attention, but the Kaminoans' long necks turned cautiously as they passed. The Jedi didn't know that the Prime Minister had already alerted the Separatists that they were acting with stealth. The group started by searching the medical labs where the clones were initially created, sifting through rows of equipment and data terminals. They searched the clone health records, looking for any mention of the inhibitor chips, but the files seemed carefully curated, with nothing directly explaining the chip's true purpose. Frustration grew as they moved to the genetic engineering wing, where the Kaminoans conducted their experiments, but once again, they found nothing definitive. Their presence began to draw more attention, and Kaminoan scientists started to linger nearby, watching them with an almost unnatural calm. Suspicious but undeterred, they decided to examine Rex and Cody's chips directly. In a secure medical lab, they accessed advanced scanners and examined the chips embedded in their brains. The scans showed anomalies, odd programming that didn't seem tied to normal clone behavior by showing how they both had high levels of precision in their genomes. Like they could be convinced of something very quickly. It was enough to raise further alarms as it sounded very similar to what Fives was saying before his death. Hey guys, make sure to check out our saber shop Fantasy Sabers for the best NeoPixel sabers on the market. We have a bunch of perfect replicas and other insane Padawan sabers for sale. Check them out on our website, first link in the description below, and grab your own one today. Following the trial, they learned of a restricted area deep within this facility, a place used only by the Prime Minister. The group moved carefully, sneaking past Kaminoan guards and accessing the area through service corridors. The tension was high as they entered the restricted zone, their presence unnoticed so far. Inside, they found a secure terminal containing encrypted files, and Anakin used the Force to unlock it. They uploaded the data onto their data pad, finding classified records labeled contingency orders. Digging deeper, they discovered Order 66, a directive to eliminate the Jedi upon command. They also found Order 65, which was a decree that if a majority of the Security Council deemed the Chancellor unfit for duty, he would be arrested or killed. Their suspicion was confirmed. This was the evidence they needed. With the files downloaded, they slipped out of the restricted area. As they began to move back to their ships with the data pad of evidence, sirens alarm in the facility. Clones began running around from all sides. As Rex slams one clone against the wall, he demands to know what is happening. The Separatists are invading. As Dooku's fleet descended through the stormy skies of Kamino, droid landing craft spilled the waves of battle droids onto the platforms surrounding Topoka City, their metallic legs clanking as they marched into battle. The clones immediately scrambled to set up defenses, fortifying choke points with barriers and blaster turrets as the droids advanced with unrelenting precision. Inside the facility, the Kaminoan Prime Minister discreetly directed Dooku and his Magna Guards towards the restricted section, betraying the Jedi in hopes of preserving Kamino's ties to the Sith. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Rex and Cody moved quickly, rallying nearby clones to hold the narrow corridors against the advancing droids. Lightsabers clashed against the humming electro staffs of the Magna Guards, sparks flying as the Jedi fought to buy time. Outside, the rain-slicked platforms became a chaotic battlefield, with clones holding the line against relentless waves of droids, using walkers and heavy cannons to keep the Separatists at bay. The Jedi fought hard, but also knew that getting this information out safely is their highest priority and could mean the end of the war or the continuation of it. Meanwhile, Anakin and Obi-Wan engage Count Dooku, who approached from his Separatist cruiser with his saber already ignited. Anakin recalled back to losing his arm only a few years prior. Now is the time he would get even. The storm on Kamino raged as Obi-Wan and Anakin fought Count Dooku, their lightsabers clashing in an intense duel. The platforms were slippery from the endless rain, but Anakin's strikes were wild and full of anger, while Obi-Wan's movements were calm and precise. Dooku's red blade moved like lightning, powering their attacks with ease. The sound of their lightsabers echoed through the storm as sparks flew with every strike. Dooku stepped back, forcing them to come to him together, but he used the Force to throw debris from the damaged platform to slow them down. Kenobi managed to block it, keeping his focus on the fight, but Anakin pushed forward aggressively, trying to overpower Dooku with sheer force. The Sith Lord smirked as he dodged and countered, using his experience to keep the Jedi on edge, but Anakin's relentless assault began to make him falter. Not far away, Rex and Cody were locked in a desperate battle against the endless waves of droids. Blaster fire lit up the rain-soaked platforms as the two clones fought shoulder to shoulder, defending the datapad with their lives. The droids pressed in closer, forcing the clones to retreat step by step. Cody glanced at the Jedi, still locked in their duel, and then at the datapad. He knew what had to be done. Rex tries to hold his ground, blasting droids with pinpoint accuracy, but Cody could see they were being overrun. As another explosion shook the platform, Cody shoved the datapad into Rex's hands. Rex stared at him, hesitating, but Cody's expression was firm. He yelled at Rex to go, his voice cutting through the chaos. Reluctantly, Rex turned and sprinted towards the ship, dodging blaster bolts as he ran away. Behind him, Cody stood his ground, firing at the advancing troops. He moved with precision, taking down as many as he could, but the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. Rex reached the ship, his heart pounding as he climbed aboard and fired up the engines. As he lifted off, he looked back and saw Cody surrounded, blaster bolts raining down on Cody as he continued to fight, refusing to back down. The sight made Rex's chest tighten, but he knew he couldn't stop. The datapad had to get to Coruscant. Steering the ship low over the platform, Rex swung back around. The ship's engines roared as it hovered just above Anakin and Obi-Wan, who were still fighting Dooku. The Jedi leaped onto the ship's open ramp as Rex pulled away, the platform disappearing into the distance. Anakin collapsed onto the floor of the ship, his breath heavy, while Obi-Wan sat in silence, his expression grim. Rex didn't speak as he piloted the ship through the storm, his mind replaying the last moments he'd seen Cody, standing alone against an unstoppable enemy. Cody had given everything so they could escape, and now it was up to them to make his sacrifice count. The Jedi return to Coruscant and go straight to the council chambers, handing over the datapad and explaining that Fives was telling the truth. The Battle of Kamino still rages on, with the clone planet being overrun, but it doesn't matter anymore. The end of the war could be decided in this room. The Jedi Council debated over what to do next as they couldn't agree. There was a lot of risk involved in what they were discussing. Theoretically, they should have enough evidence to prove that Palpatine has manipulated the Republic and orchestrated a plot to destroy the Jedi. I mean, that's literally what their datapad shows, and that's trapped behind the fact that the Kaminoans have been hiding this from the Republic. But there's also a strong chance that the Senate won't believe the Jedi. At the end of the day, Palpatine is the most popular man in the galaxy, at least to the Senate. He is the best Chancellor the Republic has ever had, and they would all bend worlds for him. For them to believe that he is secretly evil, well, it would be difficult. The Jedi call Bail Organa and Padme Amidala into the chambers, who were representing the delegation of 2000 and the Security Council. Yoda and Anakin tell them about Fives and the contingency orders, who all think it's treason. Bail says they should execute Order 65 immediately and have the Chancellor removed, but he was told to practice caution. Organa leaves and calls a Security Council meeting where they would discuss this. In the meantime, the Jedi Council accompanied the members of the delegation of 2000 to the Senate. The delegation of 2000 was a group of senators who were very concerned with the state of the war and operations of the Senate towards the end of the Clone Wars. The Senate chamber was filled with tension as the Jedi and delegation of 2000 presented their case against Palpatine. The room was silent except for the murmurs of senators as the evidence was shown. The inhibitor chip files, the contingency orders, and the fact that only Palpatine could execute these orders. Palpatine stood before them, denying it all, his calm voice masking the growing panic in his mind. Palpatine used his charm to try and avoid the growing chaos, but even he knew that this wasn't going well. Padme delivers a speech about how democracy has to be preserved, and when a leader abuses their power, as Palpatine is, they need to be removed from office. The Senate gasped at the idea of this. Simultaneously, Bail Organa left the Security Council as their Senate pod moved to the center of the arena. Organa explained that the discovery of Order 65, a contingency order that allowed the Senate to remove the Chancellor if deemed unfit for power. The senators began to calm at the sight of Organa. He carried off a sense of trust and respect that rivaled even Palpatine. He explained that the Security Council had just voted with a majority in agreement, and they activated Order 65. Moments later, the Coruscant Guard stormed into the chamber, their boots echoing as they approached. Palpatine ordered them to step down. But Palpatine's calm mask had finally cracked. His anger flared as he refused to surrender, his voice commanding the clones to stay back. But when one clone stepped closer, Palpatine finally snapped. His red lightsaber ignited with a fiery hiss, and with one swift motion, he struck down the clone in a flash of red light. The chamber erupted in chaos. The remaining clones, stunned by what they had just seen, opened fire. Blaster bolts rained down on Palpatine from all sides, lighting up the room with flashes of red and blue as he deflected some with his lightsaber, his movements unnaturally fast and filled with rage. But there were too many clones, and their numbers overwhelmed him. Hundreds of blaster bolts tore through his defenses, and Palpatine fell to the ground, his lightsabers clattering beside him. The room went silent as the smoke cleared, revealing the fallen Chancellor. With Palpatine dead, the senators stared in shock and horror, trying to process what had just happened. Slowly, Bail Organa stepped into one of the Senate pods. He reassured everyone that the Republic would remain strong and that they would honor the principles of democracy. The galaxy had been under the shadow of a tyrant, but now that the shadow was gone, they would move on. An election would be held to choose a new leader, and the Republic would rebuild. Reinforcements were immediately sent to Kamino, and the Republic forces, with renewed strength, overwhelmed the remaining separatists. Dooku contacted his master for guidance on what to do, but there was no response. As thousands of ships entered the system and blocked their escape, Dooku was stuck. A dozen Jedi entered the battle, and very soon, they located and captured Count Dooku. The Clone Wars were over, and the Republic had won. Across the galaxy, people celebrated as the battle stopped and peace finally returned. Bail Organa was elected as Chancellor, bringing hope and stability to the galaxy desperate for leadership. The Jedi Order, though shaken by the events, felt relief that they had uncovered the Sith's plans and prevented the destruction of their order. Anakin Skywalker returned home to Padme, where they began their family together. Soon, their children were born, and the couple built a life filled with love and happiness. The galaxy was no longer at war, and the Jedi continued to protect and guide the Republic. Peace was restored, and for the first time in years, everything felt right. Anakin, Padme, and their children lived happily ever after, and the galaxy remained at peace for many years to come.
Ignite your imagination with fantasy sabers.
Thanks for watching today's video. Head over to Fantasy Sabers for the best NeoPixel sabers on the market. You won't be disappointed. And be sure to check out our membership program where you get exclusive content and all of our what ifs early. See you in the next episode, and may the Force be with you.